What's up, everybody? Hope you are having a good week so far. I am stoked for this episode. We have got my man, Drew Assini, here today. I have been so excited to do this episode. You guys are going to fucking love it. I know Drew personally. I met Drew in grad school. And this episode's going to be a little less structured than the normal episodes because that's Drew. And Drew and I just love to talk. So we're going to be candid with Drew today. And I don't have a bio because the man can speak for himself. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You want to tell everybody where the hell you're at right now? I'm so jealous.
All right. Well, yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm hanging out on a extended meditation. Well, I'm hanging out on an island here in Thailand on a extended meditation retreat vacation kind of vibe. And it's not a bad place to spend the apocalypse. Doing all right.
Yeah, the apocalypse. My God. Do you want to just tell everybody what you do, what you've done, your experience, your history? Give me the spiel.
I am. All that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So my name is Drew. Last name is Assini. I got a lot of formers in my bio now. So I'm like a former therapist, counselor guy, drug and alcohol. I spent a decade working in mental health, and then recently have let go of my letters. So I'm moving into whatever comes after the therapist role or identity for me. So 10 years working predominantly with addiction. Yeah, lots of experiences, lots of fun stories. Also former college professor, college instructor. I spent some time at a couple different institutions teaching undergrad and graduate programs, teaching in those programs. That's where we met when I was trying to fit into being a college professor, which was, it's quite the experience. And
quite the experience. Yeah. So I met Drew in, God, what year was it? It was 2014 when I started grad school. And I was in a research lab, and Drew was... What technically was your position?
Well, that was fall of 2014, right?
Fall of 2014, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I was coming back from spending that summer in the jungle, drinking ayahuasca and fucking, yeah, I was barely, my feet were barely touching the ground that whole year.
Oh, wait, what is ayahuasca?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother episode. It's like a plant medicine from the Amazon, from South America.
Is that where you were, South America?
Yeah. I spent 6 weeks in Peru that summer. And it was amazing experience. Yeah, it's like ayahuasca is like the natural plant version of like exposure therapy, but on fast forward and like volume 12. Right. And you puke and you see weird shit. But anywho.
Oh, is it? It's like trippy?
Oh, yeah. It's like one of the strongest psychoactive substances on the planet, easily. Yeah.
But it's legal?
There it is. you ain't going to buy it in the corner store in the States nowhere.
And what's the purpose of it? Like, what does it do for you?
So in the South American culture, it's used as kind of like a rite of passage, and also as a like one dude I spoke to down there said like every year or every other year he would come and he would participate in this ceremony that had a lot of intention and and a lot of intention, and the purpose was to show up for healing, for your own growth, your own awakening, your own healing. And so you drink this medicine, and then you have a 4 to 6 hour ceremony where you're under the influence or opened up to different states of awareness or consciousness, and that Yeah. So it's used in their culture as a rite of passage and as like kind of a cleansing. It's become more popular for white folks, and Americans as like psycho-spiritual adventuring, but also is gaining a lot more attention, and rightly so, for the work it can do with people with trauma, like deep shit, whether it's addiction or mental health stuff. Because the medicine really cracks you open. It's how MDMA therapy now is like helps people do years worth of therapy in like an 8-hour session potentially.
Yep.
It's a lot like similarly
It's
like that. Yeah, except MDMA is it's a chemical that's produced, whereas this is it's a tea that's made out of like plants from the Amazon. So
damn, that's amazing.
super cool shit, man.
Yeah, that's so cool. Especially, I mean, for healing, just to open you up to kind of like another realm. And I'm assuming people with like repressed memories of trauma, like myself, like that'd be perfect for, because it sort of just opens you up.
Yeah, it can definitely accelerate the healing process and get to places that you might not be able to access through talk therapy alone.
Whew. I might be down in the Amazon this fall.
Yeah.
I might be taking a break from this podcast.
It's cool. Just be ready to like puke your guts up and stuff.
Why do you puke? It just because
it's called a purgative. So the idea on some level is that if you're drinking the medicine, it's
you're
in your
like
body, and then you clear out all the shit. Yes, you got it. Yep.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we got off track already.
We literally were like 5 minutes in and totally in left field. It's so good.
Yep. And right before we started recording, we were like, all right, how are we going to stay on track? And then we started recording, and here we are. All right, reeling it back in. So 2014, I started grad school, and you were you the assistant professor in the research lab? Who were you? I didn't know. I thought you were just some cool guy that just you were the no.
They just didn't throw me out, so I stayed. So I was an instructor, and I think I was a 3/4 time instructor, right? So I was like a super adjunct, but they gave me an office, and I taught 3 classes a semester. And then I had gone to school there, right? So I had gone through the same grad program and was an undergrad there. So, I had a relationship with the department and, our research lab coordinator and research lab, the faculty that ran it. So it was just a natural fit for me to keep being around. It was just now I had a different official role, but I was still just showing up as me and bringing that to the table. So.
Yeah, grad school was, for me, one of the toughest times of my life, not because of grad school, but when I first started, so grad school started in August, like late August of 2014. Mm-hmm. And then that October, I went into a partial hospitalization program at Renfrew for an eating disorder. So I was in treatment from like 8 to 3:30, Monday to Friday. I would leave treatment, go to grad school, and be in school all night. And when I joined the lab and you were there, you were like the perfect comedic relief, because everything in grad school, especially when you first start, they try to weed out the weak ones. I mean, they really do. It's like survival of the fittest when you start. So like every day, every professor, I think they rehearse this speech. It's like, if you're in this profession to make money, get out now, because you won't make money, and you shouldn't be working full time, and you shouldn't be working at all, because your whole life needs to revolve around this. Like, they do everything short of threatening you to see if you'll stay.
Yeah, and then give you like 100 articles to read, like an impossible amount of literature to get through between now and the next class. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It is. It's like an episode. It's like fucking Survivor. They're like, Godspeed. Here you go. 1,000 pages. Good luck.
Yeah.
See you next week.
100%. Yep.
Or hope I don't see you. Hope you drop out of the race between now and then.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, and the thing is that so many people dropped out of the race. Like when I graduated, I think there were 5 people in my cohort. 5 of us graduated. And I think there were like 15 of us who started.
Yeah. For me, I think we started with like 12 and then we finished with 3. But that was also a semester where the school was like, I don't know, there was a question around the accreditation so you had to take a leap of faith at that point. Like I remember that September. Yeah. But I just leaned into the experience. For me,
Yeah.
I loved grad school because there were 3 of us by the end of it. And so every class was like 3 of us and some like seasoned psychologist. And we just picked their brain. And yeah, it was cool, but definitely it's easy to get sucked up in the seriousness and the like how loud everything is, for sure.
Absolutely. And you were one of the people who made things feel a lot more manageable. And you also had your own, it was a meditation yoga studio, right?
Yep. Across the street from the school. Yeah.
When did you open that?
That fall, because I came back. Yeah, at that point I had been working in the field for only like 3 or 4 years, and I was already like over it. And I went to the jungle and had my experiences, and I came back, and it was very clear that like I wanted to do my thing my way, which was more healing and incorporating lots more alternative approaches, embodied approaches to healing and recovery and all that. So yeah, I opened the spot across the street from the school. We had regular classes, and yeah, it was cool. And I ran my private practice out of there. That was a fun time, man. Like I had the center, and I had a bike, and I would ride my bicycle from the center to my office on campus, and then teach and hang out with the students and do lab. And that was really, that's good. Like, yeah, my heart is feeling gushy and
All
mushy.
the nostalgia. Yep.
Yeah.
It was so fun. And it would be the best when you're like on campus and you just see Drew on his bike. It's the best. And he waves and you wave, and people who don't know Drew were like, oh, who's that? Like, you know that guy? And you're like, yeah, dude, that's my professor. He's on his bike.
Yeah.
I came to your studio quite a few times. You would have like, so your studio is when I first learned about the bliss that is restorative yoga. Oh, holy nice. Shit, guys. If you have never tried restorative yoga, you have no idea what you're missing. It's the best experience in the world. Well, probably second to ayahuasca. Is that how you say it?
No, restorative yoga is probably much more pleasurable than ayahuasca. Yeah.
Did I say
thought you were going
right?
to say like, I thought you were going to say next to orgasm, but I'm like, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that too.
Yeah.
Restorative yoga is probably better than that. But that's when I first learned meditation. I had never meditated before. And I remember my friend Kate. So Kate and I used to, we would show up at your studio. How early? Jesus, it was like 6 a.m. I mean, it was dark out when we would come for meditation in the morning. And I don't get out of bed for anything. I don't do mornings. But I would drive and we would sit in your studio, and it was the first time in my life where I learned how to sit with myself. And that meditation practice helped me more than anything to get through grad school, because so much of what I had been doing up until really I started meditating is running from myself, running from who I really am, running from my experiences, which is part of the purpose that the eating disorder served. And yeah, I just remember sitting in, I remember the butt cushions. Is that what they're called? That's probably not an appropriate term.
That's
The
perfectly. That's exactly what they're
ass
called.
cushions.
Oh, so good.
Like, and
Yeah.
I remember sitting with like just all of this comfort or this peace and discomfort at the same time. And it's
Mm,
the first time that I realized that you can have bad experiences and you can have discomfort and you can still be at peace.
mm. It's
And
big.
that helped me get through grad school. And I I don't know, I've just been such a huge fan of all the stuff that you've done since. So, could you just touch a little bit on how meditation has helped you and like your personal background? Because I know you have quite a fascinating story.
All right. Sometimes I think it's fascinating. Other times I'm over it. It's like I
You're
don't
sick of
even
talking
who.
about it.
Well, it's just I'm sick of like what happens when I believe what I think. Which is why meditation is great.
Yep.
Um, Yes. So yeah, and I guess this is cool too because it's almost like doubles back earlier. So like former therapist, former counselor, former college professor person. But the other thing I would identify as is a person in long-term recovery. And and so meditation really started to show up in my life at the beginning of my own recovery process, specifically from addiction, and then later also gambling and smoking cigarettes and stuff too. But yeah, I mean, like I always thought meditation was cool. Like I remember reading Siddhartha in like sixth grade and thinking like, oh man, this is cool. But the actual practice of meditation, I didn't really start to play with until I was in early into my recovery process and I needed help figuring out how to not do the same old dumb shit over and over again. How not to just go with the impulses and the thoughts, and watching the thoughts gave me something to do that wasn't believing the thoughts. Yeah, and that was an immense freedom that opened up. And then I think I got it like 2 years and change clean, or two years into the recovery process. And then I went and spent a summer at this holistic retreat center where I was part of a community really for a couple months. And that's when I was introduced to more formal practices of meditation. Then led to me starting to go on retreats and 10-day retreats and all that. I feel like meditation has gone from a useful tool to help me navigate the ups and downs of being me and life and feelings and all of this, whatever this is that keeps happening, this life thing.
Yep.
And now, like 10 plus years later, where I've finally been able to like cultivate and develop a daily practice, and having the time here on the island to myself, I'm sitting a couple times a day for a couple hours a day. Yeah, it just feels like the peace and ease that meditation makes available, or moving from a meditative space, that peace and ease is just way cooler than anything I was getting from the achieving, grasping approach to life. So now I feel like what used to help me navigate life is now revealing a totally different way of living. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Yeah, it used to be all about life and achieving and getting things, and then meditation helped me deal with all that. And now it feels like life is about like sitting in peace and in ease and allowing life to just happen. And
Yes.
and then I have to do enough like life work things to support my ability to sit there and just enjoy the experience, which is cool and a long way from not being able to sit in my own skin for even a second at a time.
Yeah. So, right. Basically, what you're saying is, and this is kind of the same experience that I had, that meditation helped you to not act on the impulses. It helped you to just sit with it and then sort of transformed into like this space where you're not just sitting with it, but you're going places with your meditation. Like it's become more active, as instead of like a coping skill, it's now integrated to becoming like an integral part of your life.
It fundamentally changes the experience of life if
Yes.
you commit to a practice, and whether it's formal meditation or yoga or anything mindfulness oriented. Yeah, I mean, to sit on a cushion and practice focusing on one thing for as long as you can, and then when you wander somewhere you just come back, and to do that with a certain sense of like acceptance and patience, then cultivates the ability in our day-to-day living to focus on one thing at a time with some patience and some acceptance. And so it's magical, but it's actually very simple. And it's like, oh yeah, duh, of course, if I practice this, then this will show up more. So for me, I like magical shit, but I need it practical. I got to see it in action. I got to know that it works. And then I'm all about it.
Yeah. And shit, what was I going to say?
It'll come back. The good stuff always does.
That train of thought has left the station. Oh, nope.
Nope, different train. But
God damn it.
So here's the cool thing. It'll come back to you while I'm talking too. So the cool thing is essentially the train metaphor is something I'll use all the time too, is that the goal of meditation is to learn how to rest in the station and not get on every friggin' train that runs through it.
Yeah.
Right. So if we understand ourselves to be more the train station, and then there's lots of different trains. There's the worry about money train. There's the worry about your significant other train. There's the plan your future train. There's the, oh shit, don't talk about what happened, when I was 12 train. And they're all coming and going through the station all the time. And what we do is we cultivate the ability to rest in the station. And when we get on a train, we can recognize it sooner and then get back, instead of riding that train till, whatever particular pain we find, or whatever consequence.
Right. And then what happens is usually you're riding the train and then you want to get off of it so goddamn badly and you don't know how. Right. And you end up self-destructing, right? You're like, all right, well, let me just get high, or let me go binge eat, or let me cut myself, or whereas meditation helps you to just stay on the platform, like you said.
Yep. The other thing, too, with meditation, I think it's important to throw out there, especially for folks with trauma in their background or that's recent or is coming to the surface, is that bare bones, just focus on your breath meditation can be actually really difficult and not yield awesome results for folks who have really loud, intense trauma. And so if somebody wants to experiment with this stuff because, they're intrigued or they can see the benefit, I would just recommend that it's a more active meditation for someone who has a more active system because of maybe a trauma or, something that's going on in there. So maybe it's, while you're walking, or yoga practice, or, a particular, I'm walking on the beach and my toes are in the sand, like a guided meditation.
Right. As opposed to just stillness, because it's to ask somebody with a history of, and that was a lot of the stuff that came up for me when I started going to your studio to meditate, is somebody with a nervous system who has endured trauma that's really never been regulated. I never had a regulated nervous system. So it's almost damn near impossible to get somebody to just sit in stillness and silence. And I think that that's why a lot of trauma survivors, we do this thing, and I say we, because I was this person too, where I would be like, meditation, fuck that. I can't sit there. I got shit to do. I can't sit there. And the thing, I had no patience. I mean, I still don't have patience, but that's neither here nor there. I just remember the thing that you did that helped me so much is that everything was just okay with you. You would always remind me that it doesn't matter. Okay, yeah, you probably sat there for 3 seconds before your mind started to drift off to how many papers you have to write today, but it's okay. And everything was sort of laughable. So you never gave me a chance to get pissed off at myself and give up on it. Everything was yeah, it's fine. Regroup and do it again. And it gives you the opportunity to have patience with yourself, which I think is important and crucial, especially for folks with trauma.
Totally. Yeah.
So you've been in recovery for how many years?
14 and change now. Yeah, 14.
Okay. And how many years were you living in addiction?
Uh, which version of that story do you want? The one that, impresses people, or the truth, or
Give me the truth. Give me the
yeah.
authentic version.
Like I started, I think I was like 15-ish when like alcohol and beer started showing up in social stuff. And so there were a couple years where like, we get drunk here or smoke a joint there or whatever. So it wasn't a lot. But I guess after the first couple years, I'd say maybe at like 17, substances started to become a regular part of my experience. And then about 18, I'd probably say that without knowing it, I was then into a full-blown addiction where like I was no longer the boss. And then that lasted until I was about 23, 24. I turned 24 with like 90 days clean or something. So probably like 4 to 5 years like in addiction, and maybe like 2 or 3 of them where it was like dark and would probably have rather died than continued, and waking up not wanting to get high and then couldn't not get high, and then would just continue the cycle. So yes. So I mean I could say like probably like 6 years of substance use that was disordered, but then like the darkness of the grip of addiction, it was probably like a 4-5 year window maybe.
What was that like, or was there a specific turning point for you where you were like, I don't want this for myself?
The bottom, in the story that's been written, right? The not the first bottom, but like
the
but like the last bottom. Yeah.
Right.
Because what do they say? Like every bottom has a trap door, and then there's another one, and another one, and another one,
Right.
and then
yeah.
And then also, like, this is the bottom for me that came with the drugs and alcohol specifically. Like, I have, within the last 5 years, hit bottoms relative to some, like, adult children and family of dysfunction stuff. So, like, so, like, recovery is a hell of a ride.
Oh, yeah. It's that roller coaster that you really can't get off of. You're on it.
No. Yeah.
But it's a hell of a ride, but it's also so beautiful because I think you reach different heights.
Oh, tremendously. Well, the cool part too is that like the height that's reached is it doesn't matter how high or how low anymore. More like
it is what it is.
So then, like you said it beautifully. You're like there was a piece that was present with a certain level of like chaos or dysfunction, and like that was okay. And that's a beautiful space. Yeah. So like the short version is essentially I had like moved away, because everybody else was the problem. Like I knew what I was doing, blame everybody else, run away. And I got arrested for a DUI, and I had to like detox like on the floor of the fucking holding area of the jail. And there was just, just moments of like, this is my fucking life. Like I was the kid with like all the potential and everybody liked, and if you could only get his shit together, blah, blah, blah. And then, here I was in an orange jumpsuit, just like drooling on the floor. And then shortly after that, I made the phone call to my parents to try to bail me out for the gabillionth time. And it was like the middle of the night. And so my mom's like her story always was like, I'm going to get the call in the middle of the night that you're dead. That was like her guilt trip every time I'd do something stupid. I've come to figure out later, it's like, maybe mom, if guilting is like one of your top parenting techniques, like that's not fucking helpful. But anyway.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, she's a mom, and she worried about her kid, and she was always worried. Like the nightmare scenario for her was the phone call in the middle of the night that, her kid was dead. And so here I was making the phone call, and I remember the phone wasn't working. So I had to go, like, they coordinated it so like a guard called, and then you spoke to whoever. And so I told the guard, I'm like, look, I explained all this to the guard, and I'm like, look, like just immediately say that I'm alive and okay, and then tell her whatever you want, and then I'll talk to her. and the guard just blew me off. Didn't matter. So the guard answered the phone with like, hello, this is such and such from blah 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 county, blah blah blah. And so I heard my mom answer like, hello, because it was like 4 a.m. or something. And then the guard launched into that whole intro. It was like, is this Kathy, blah, blah, blah. And I heard my mom's voice like, yes. like, and I felt it in her voice because I'm empathic, right? I can feel shit from just tones of voice.
Yep.
And I like literally felt her prepping herself to hear that her son was dead. And like it split right through me. Like it hit me in my heart and my gut and just blew me wide open. And I think that was like the final blow. And I didn't get clean right away after that, but like that was the final blow where it was like, okay, something like I got to do something different because this sucks.
Yeah.
And about 6 months later, I finally got clean with, some help and a counselor and support. So, yeah, so that was probably like the bottom, the broken open moment.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you saying that you didn't get clean in that moment, because I think that there's this idea that people have this rock bottom moment and then it's like, well, and after that, everything was rainbows and puppies and ice cream and butterflies. And it's like, no, it actually, that's where it gets really ugly, is the moment when you realize you need to change is when it really gets hard.
Well, like that moment cracked me open. I knew I wanted something to be different, but I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like, we can come to a place where it's like, okay, I don't want this anymore, but I had no clue how to do anything else. Otherwise I would have done some other shit by then, instead of just riding that horse, all the way to Paintown. And so it took a little while to get connected with people who could offer things that I could hear and make suggestions that I was willing to take. And I feel really blessed because, and you'll hear this from some folks in recovery, that like, if it gets dark enough, you come out of hell, like on fire to do something different. And I was willing to do like anything because I was shattered at that point. So when these like weird old men were like telling me to do shit that I thought was dumb, I still was judging it, but also I was like freshly toasted from the hells, of addiction. And I'm like, all right, fuck it. Like, sure, I'll try it. Let's do the weird thing. Cool. And it turned out that like this weird shit they suggested actually provided me with a different experience that was better.
And what do you mean by weird shit?
Well, just like stuff I would have judged, like, because in active addiction, part of what kept me there was my mindset, right? Was being super critical,
all the
super judgmental. Yep. And then I have some brain cells, right? So there's some intelligence here, but that had been so warped that then like now I was like, oh, nobody understands, nobody knows, I know better than them, I'm smarter than them. I had that whole thing. So no matter what anybody told me, I could poke holes in it and then tell them why they didn't know what they were talking about. So I was a real pain in the ass. And so when I got into recovery, I was finally willing to be like, okay, you're telling me to, like, I remember, this is a good example. I was early on and I was hanging out with a particular guy, and there was a dude I had asked to be my sponsor. And he told me, he initially said no. He's like, no, you need to be around here a little bit. You just got here. He was an old head. So
he said no. I didn't know you could say no.
Oh, yeah. Well, essentially, he was like, look, like, are you going to listen to what I have to say? And are you actually going to stick around? Otherwise, I'm not going to waste my time with you.
Yeah.
And,
no, I mean, that
and
makes
I don't
sense.
know that. Yeah, that's old school 12-step. That's not like, oh, sure, I hope you stay clean today. It's not, it wasn't like that. But that guy, I remember at a diner, like this dude I was hanging out with that I felt was like my, like, we were like in it together and we were going to stay clean forever. And he pulled me aside and he's like, look, ditch that guy. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, he's not about this. And I'm like, no, he's my partner. He's like, dude, do you want to trust what I have to say based on my 20 something years of like being around here? Or do you want to tell me what you think you know? And I was like, all right. And literally that dude got high 2 days later. And if I had been hanging out with him, I probably would have, so it was like a read on a situation that I thought was dumb, that I was willing to like suspend my judgment for a moment and trust new perspective that opened me up to a whole new experience. And it was shit like that.
Potentially saved your life.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, I'm not sitting here talking with you because of anything I figured out. Like I figured out how to get into a lot of pain, and then that broke me open and had me malleable and suggestible. And then other people shared their wisdom and their love and their support. And that's what saved my life. That's what has me here. So. Yeah.
And in turn, I mean, to this day, you're still using that to help other people. So you have this website, helping folks remember, which
Yep.
I love. I love the name of it. It's classic Drew. What does that mean? Tell me what that means, because well, you explained it a little bit on, so Drew also has his own podcast, the Drive About podcast. You guys should definitely go listen to it because he's very candid, and the thoughts that he has are extremely original and fascinating. But I love this concept, and I know you talk about this on your podcast, which is helping people to remember. So what is that? What does that mean?
Well, for me, it's just a really cool framework that's way less heavy than a lot of the like judgment, stigma, clinical diagnosis, right? Because I'm coming from years of personal experience and professional experience in addiction treatment, mental health, teaching in colleges, teaching mental health, working in treatment centers. So like there's a lot of weight that comes with a lot of the labels, and really any concept that has been around for a minute gets heavy because we just constantly project our own meanings and understandings on the stuff. And so it just felt like, yeah, this framework was like fresh. It's like, okay, cool. It's just forgetting and remembering. There's not really like a clinical bias to forgetting. Like nobody's trying to like DSM you with a forgetting.
Right.
And so, yeah, coming from a world where there was heavy labels, there was definitely a wish for something that was lighter and easier and fresher. Yeah, and I don't even know how. It was just kind of like I was in Oregon at the time and hanging out, and it was like a flash download. It was just like, oh, holy shit, this makes so much sense. Like the only thing we're guilty of is just forgetting how fucking awesome we are. That's it. Like we're already whole and complete. We're already awesome. We're already amazing, right? That's in place, has always been there, will potentially always be there, depending upon how we see things. And so the name of the game now is not to become something else or fix ourselves or, whatever. It's just to relearn or remember or unlearn, right? We unlearn the dumb shit, and then we're able to remember back to a time in our own life when things were easier, or into an understanding of ourselves that is lighter and freer. And so it's beautiful too, because like the fundamental assumption is that we're already cool. So like
Yeah.
we're instead of working from a place of deficit or lack, we're actually working from a place of, I want to say abundance, but that's kind of the other end. So the remembering, forgetting thing is just a framework. What are we guilty of, or what's the actual problem? Well, it's just that you've forgotten that you're awesome, so you don't act like you're awesome. And most of us don't act like we're awesome. We act like we're missing something that we need to get in order to be awesome. And so if we can unlearn all that forgetting stuff, then we're able to remember ourselves in a clearer, lighter, simpler way. And then we just get to enjoy life and do whatever the fuck we want. And then the words break down too, which I love because I'm a little bit of a word nerd. I like breaking down words and looking at them differently. I feel like we should just generally be more conscious of the language we use. But forgetting breaks down into for and getting. So if someone is forgetting, they're also for getting things, right? Or pro acquiring stuff. And a lot of what we do with our life is spend it in pursuit of acquiring a thing or a person or a title or an achievement, because then that will make us better or lovable or okay or complete, right? So we're always operating from a place of deficit, trying to chase something that's the carrot you can never grab. And so it's cool. It's like really the forgetfulness is all about this seeking outside of ourselves. And then remembering is about remembering that we're already whole, that nothing's going to complete us because we're already complete. That's why nothing ever scratches the itch the way we want it to. And then remember, broken down, is just like becoming a member again or becoming a part of something bigger. And I feel like that's huge because I would say that more so than like, or before addiction and, mental health stuff, whether it's the depression or PTSD or whatever might show up, like before that shows up, we actually distinguish ourselves as something separate. And I feel like that's actually one of the fundamental fallacies of how we understand experience, that we're really interconnected. Everything's connected. We're all impacting each other all the time. But when we believe we're alone or we're separate, then we become susceptible to shit like anxiety and depression, and it's like the little what is it? The little antelope that can then get eaten, by the lion when you're separate, or you believe you're separate from the pack.
And I love the simplicity of that, because I think there's so much like jargon around trauma and PTSD. And I so agree that it's what makes us susceptible is that like we forget that like we didn't do anything wrong. We forget that we're amazing. And when we forget that, then we are susceptible to like PTSD and a whole host of issues. I love the simplicity.
It felt like a really nice, light, practical, accessible kind of framework to then understand the path of remembering or healing or whatever. And not to make light of any of the shit that goes on in our experience. It's just like, if we understand that like, oh, I need to fix my trauma, or I need to like heal my broken spot. And it's like, okay, yes, but also let's take a step back first and recognize that you already are awesome. And that now we're just trying to work our way back into remembering that, which could be, well, you can't really go backwards, right? Like that's the cool part about trauma, is that it actually is an upgrade. We just got to learn how to work with it.
Exactly. Now, so I know you're doing your own personal work. What are you doing in terms of like, are you seeing people right now? So you're not doing any sort of counseling, or are you?
So I've officially left behind the psychotherapy, Western psychology, counseling, clinical, like that paradigm I'm leaving behind. I mean, obviously I can't leave all of its impact in my life, right? But so I'm still talking with people, I'm still working with folks individually and in group settings, but it's much more with this frame of reference. So, and when I talk to people, I'm like, look, I'm no longer a formal therapist guy. This is not therapy. If you have like some acute shit that is up, you should be talking to a therapist, right? But then also, I feel like to a certain degree, the therapeutic paradigm is just about symptom relief, and then really kicks you in the ass out the door once you no longer are in a certain crisis mentality. And so what I'm trying to do is then be that next thing where it's like, all right, cool, shit used to be on fire, now it's not on fire, but you like this new approach to life. How do you ground in it? How do you really move forward in it? It's like, okay, I can take you there. Now we can really start to like ground it to some practical, maybe spiritual living or practical living, just conscious living.
And if there are, okay, so what you're saying is people who are out of that kind of crisis stage and then want to access that deeper level of healing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. And if people want to contact you, they just go to your website, right?
Yep. www.helpingfolksremember.org. Yeah, you can get in touch with me there. And I'm on the Facebooks and the Intergrams and the interwebs and all that stuff. I'm not good. Like I'm not, I'm a little too old to be messing with that shit. But like I know it's like I'm just trying to make myself be available so people know I'm a thing. I'm out there. Sometimes
you're an important thing. People need to know you're out there because you have a very unconventional way of dealing with trauma. And I tend to be a believer that the traditional talk therapy isn't everything. It's one thing and it's one step, but there's much more that happens in the healing process.
We're a multifaceted being, so it would be silly to try to heal us with one facet.
Yeah.
For me, like when I was working with people at the center, they would come and I'm like, all right, we'll talk, but also you're going to come to yoga and you're going to come to meditation and you're going to go get massages and you're going to do float tank and you're going to talk with my fucking nutrition friend. And like,
yep.
If you're about healing, let's not bullshit. Let's do it. Because if we put the energy into the healing process, it changes everything.
Yep. You got to be all in.
Yeah. Like my first exposure to like sustain therapy, right? Because I had a bunch of therapists that wanted to tell me shit before I was ready to hear it when I was younger. But then once my ass was on fire and I was willing to listen, my first therapist experience, he was a somatic psychotherapist. So we were listening to my body as much as I was babbling about what I thought I knew. And that was really profound. For me, there was a lot of opportunity, a lot of metaphoric healing we did, a lot of like some symbols and but I don't know that just talking would have sufficed for me.
Mm-mm.
Again, super helpful, to be able to articulate something with someone, present, that's holding space and it's supportive and loving and caring,
And also can call you out on your own shit and tell you that you don't know as much as you think you do. I mean, that's something that I know I need because I don't like to be told what to do.
And I feel like that's more accessible now because when I was in the psychotherapeutic framework, I felt like I couldn't do that as much. Like it just wasn't, I don't know. I just felt like in that position, in that role, I was more inclined to like just actively listen. Yeah. Whereas like now I'm me. So I can just be like, yeah, dude, what are you doing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have done the brave work of accessing like alternative methods to healing that I think can really help a lot of people. And I think that people aren't really aware of. I think people hear things like meditation and they're just like, kind of like what I said earlier. Like, it's just like, oh, I don't have time to sit there, but it's not like that. It's just not like that. And I think you attest to a lot of it. And you've done some really cool shit. So
awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode. For more information about today's episode and to sign up for the Light After Trauma newsletter, head over to my website at alyssascolari.com. I'm also on Twitter and I'd love to chat with you guys. Be sure to follow me. My Twitter handle is Alyssa Scolari. Thanks again for listening and take good care.